Hi everyone, so as you can see I've just pulled the bus out of the garage to make some space. Need to get George in, hopefully get him far enough back so I can then pull him forward and get him up on the wheel ramps. That's the plan, and I can start the work on him. I might have to take him off the road for a couple of 3 days. You just never know how long it's going to take me. Should have done this in the summer, but you know how it is. Right, Bertie bus is warming up and I'm going to swap places with George, who's just behind up the top of the drive, and then I'll drop the oil, drop the water. I might even take the front off. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So let's get these swapped over. Got George in the garage as a fashion. Obviously I'm going to have to move him back and try and get him up on the ramps, but I thought what I'd do is just try and drop the water out of it before I let him in, so I don't spill too much water on the floor. Right, let's get the bus switched off and we can crack on. So I've disconnected top radiator hose, both ends. By the looks of this, I'm going to have to change this top hose where the thermostat is, the casing. Hasn't been leaking, but probably will now. Let's have a quick look round. Now, I can just remove the radiator and work in here to get to these bolts, but what I'm thinking is whipping the front off. That should be 4 bolts at the top and half a dozen along the bottom. But there's no bolts along there at all. There's probably one. No, there's not even one at the end. Don't look like. Yeah, there's one screw there, and maybe 2 along the bottom there. So they've all broke away where this has been off. Probably when whoever grafted this grill in the front had that off. The bumper will have to come off, by the way. That should just be 2 big nuts, as long as they undo on either side, and then I should be able to take that whole front off. And I'll look the front bumper off. Like I said, it's just these 2 bolts. They're a bit bent, aren't they? But never mind. A lot of people with rat moggies lose the front bumper. I'm not sure if I like it or not. If I did, I'd have to make a panel for this to close that off, because I don't like this big gap under here. But I don't think George looked too bad with this bumper. I can understand why they do. It's quite hefty weight. Right, let's find somewhere to put that out of the way. So I took these bolts out either side here. Obviously took the bumper off because I was going to take the front panel off. I've decided not to take that off now because I forgot, a long time since I took one of these off. You got 3 bolts either side on these hockey sticks. Now this hockey stick I had off not so long ago, and that was a pain. So I thought, what I'll do, I'll pull the radiator and see how much room we got. And I think we got enough room to do that job. I can also see if I can sort out some nuts and bolts for this bottom, and I'll put some new ones in here. So we'll carry on like this now. Water pump doesn't look too old, so we won't touch that. The next job I think I should do is remove this fan bolt. So we need to loosen that bolt down there so I can push that alternator in a bit so the belt is not so tight. Now this, I'll tell you something about this, I may have told you before. These bottom pulleys are in 2 halves and they're like got rivets through. Now when I first had this car about 11 years ago, I was driving along and that shattered, and I had a job to get another one. I got one for about £6 in the end, but that was quite a common thing what was happening with these old things. that they are riveted and they come apart, and people say it's usually because the belt is too tight. So that belt, although it's tight, it's not overly tight. I always keep it around about that. Right, obviously that's the blade for the fan, pull the air through the radiator when the engine's running, and down there is what they call a starter dog. So if you've got a starting handle, you push that through the middle and that connects there, so you can turn the engine over. I don't think you'd ever start George with a starting handle because he liked to whir over a bit. Always have done, all the time I've known him. Right, fan belt off next. So I think now we've come this far, we should be thinking about getting the oil out of George and getting those sump bolts undone as well. But I want to get him into the garage and see if I can get him up on the wheel ramps. That's why I haven't dropped any oil yet. Then that'll give me more room to work, and I can actually fire George up to drive him up the ramps. So I'll get him back in the garage, we'll get the ramps and we'll get him up, see how far back I can get him. Up on the ramp and I can still shut the door, that's my plan. I still may take that front off as yet, now I can get under it, but we will see about that. And the reason why George is smoking is because it's all the water from the radiator, what we got on the exhaust manifold and the exhaust pipe. So it's nothing to worry about. Never worry, eh? Obviously you can't run a car for long when it's like this with no water in, because that'll just do damage. And we obviously can't run it with no oil in, that's why I needed to do it now. So I think the next job is going to be put some chocks under the back wheels so we don't move, and we'll drain that oil out. Which is in this position. We'll have a quick look at the oil situation. As you can see, there's some at the back here which could be from the rear seal, weather interseal, or some of it is water. At the front there, I'm sure you can agree, there's a little bit of oil at the bottom of there where the timing chain is, also water. But I did tighten everything up, so to be absolutely fair, he hasn't lost anywhere near the oil he was losing. I was in two minds whether to leave him alone, but now I've made a start, I need to crack on. So over there is my oil drain catcher, so we'll get that, undo this bolt while it's still a little bit warm, and get that oil out. There really not much need to do this bit, but since we've got the camera here, we might as well just show what we're doing. There we go. Remember changing that oil, it seemed that long ago. I would say 6 or 7 months maybe even less. There you go. It's very black, it needs doing. I like to change the oil quite regularly on old cars. It's cheap enough, it's only about 20 quid, 4.5 litres, so that's okay. As you can see, even though I run it on the bottom line, there's still plenty of oil in there. Now this is what I'm talking about with the front. There should be a series of bolts around here. I can see some of it is missing. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, but I will see if I can get a couple of bolts in it while we've got it up. But not now, that'll be when I'm putting it back together. I also might go for the bolts on the back of these hockey sticks. Do you know what, lying here now, the sun is so bright and it's lovely and warm, you won't think the difference between the weather yesterday. I hope it keeps this up for the next couple of days, because as always, time just gets away when you're messing about with cars. Right, while I'm waiting for that to drain, I think I need to get a cup of tea. Now while I'm waiting for that kettle to boil, just have a quick look here. Now what would have been a really good idea would have been to clean this engine before we started. Like, get a good engine degreaser, cleaned it all down before we even touched the nut and bolt on it. But we didn't really have anywhere to do it, the time to do it, so this is why I've done it like this, just cracking on with it. So what we're actually doing is changing that sump gasket and this timing chain cover gasket and the front seal, which is behind this pulley. Like I told you about that pulley, that shouldn't give us too much trouble. But the first thing I need to do is get this starting dog off, which is basically a big nut. Sometimes they give you a problem, sometimes they come off alright. They undo the normal way, which is lefty-loosey. So I'll try and find a big spanner and see if I can turn that. What some people do is a trick with a starting motor and a big spanner wedged in. But I'm hoping I don't need to do that. Just give it a jerk and that'll come off. Sounds good, doesn't it? So I managed to loosen it with this big spanner. Now what I failed to mention is on the back there is a big washer, which is really a lock-on washer, so that goes on first, and then it's just bent over slightly. This one was just slightly bent over just to stop that from undoing, and by the looks of that there, that's had a good whack in that before for some reason. Maybe someone couldn't get it off before I did, who knows. But the good thing is about it is that it's never had any problems since I put this pulley on. So obviously here's the bottom pulley. Now you may need a puller to get it off, but several people have mentioned just rocking it backwards and forwards. That might come off, so I'll try that first. If not, I'll have to try and sort out a puller. I think I've got a three-legged puller somewhere which might do that, but I don't really want to pull on the outer one because, like I said, I've had a problem with these before. But most people say they will come off quite easily if you just rock them about a bit. So I'll give that a go. Right, so I've been trying to get that pulley off by just wiggling it, but then I remembered I had this 3-jaw gear puller. I just call it a 3-legged puller. I've had this a few years now. It's the first time I've ever used it. I bought it at the Henham Steam Rally. I probably paid about a £5 for it, and people laughed, what are you going to use that for? Well, I'm using it for this. I've put it on, it fits inside the centre of the pulley nice. I didn't want to put too much pressure on because I definitely don't want to damage that pulley. But I've just been turning it lightly with a spanner, very lightly, and that's pulling it forward. It's almost out now, so that's doing the job fine. Probably do it by hand now, look. As you can see, it's coming out. So it's come in handy, that little 3-legged puller. Right, I'll just whip that out and then I'll show you where we're at. Handy little thing to have. I've got several handy little things I pick up when I'm at steam rallies. Some of the stuff I'll never use. I think I got a valve stem remover, or for removing the valve springs. All different things. Just pick them up, put them in the shed. Probably never find them again, but luckily today I found this, so that's good. The pulley's almost out. I hope you can see. I'll just pull it out by hand now. But all's good, all's good. Pulley. You can see them rivets I'm talking about. And when that's made and put together, it's in 2 halves. I didn't do any damage on it by using the puller, as you can see. Luckily enough, everything is good, so I'm pleased with that. That needs to be cleaned and just checked around this edge when it goes back with a new seal, so it doesn't damage the seal. But I'm going to clean all these bits up at some point. Before I start this job, I should have mentioned I'm no expert. I'm not telling you I am. I'm not telling you how to do it. Just showing you what I'm doing with George. So if you want to have a go at doing something and you find a better way, then by all means do it. Right, so that's the bottom pulley out. So now we can just get to these bolts here to take off this cover where the timing chain is, and obviously the sump. Then we'll be rolling with these gaskets. It's all good. Before we go any further, I'm going to get rid of this oil out of the way before I spill it. I'm going to have a little bit of a clean up, and then I shall continue with taking out the bolts. That bottom pulley clean with some brake cleaner, just to clean up a little bit. I'm not going to get rid of all the rust in there, and I'm not really bothered about the rust. Just wanted to get some of the oil in that off it, so it's a bit better start when we put it back together. So I'll put that aside now, and I think I might tackle them bolts on this front timing cover casing first. So let's find a spanner to fit those. Right, so I've been removing the bolts from this timing cover, and they're different sizes. You got 3 this side what are small and somewhat bigger, and I've wrapped them in this kind of angle here so I know how they come out. Unless they're different lengths, that won't really matter if they've got the big ones and the smaller ones, but I don't know yet because I've still got 2 or 3 of those to come out. I'm also in the process of removing this grill. I took out all these studs here, but there's one left which is causing me a bit of a problem. There's 2 self-tappets at the side and there's 2 at the bottom, and then that will come out. Obviously someone grafted that in because they like the look of it. I don't mind the look of it when it's all together. I'm going to get some new bolts for the top of this front section, and I'll drill the bottom and put a couple more bolts in the bottom to make it more sturdier. But other than that, I think there's not much more I can do today. Running out of time. So that's going to leave me to say thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos, and I'll catch you all in the next one. At least I've made a start, eh? Bye for now.